A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
That is right, everybody. It is the Angry Chicken, episode 284. My name is Willie Dills. I am joined by Jocelyn Moffat. Hello. And no Garrett Weinzerl. He is, I don't know where he is. What's he doing? He's on vacation somewhere or some sort of trip.
He's traveling. He's on a work trip with Katie.
Work trip with Katie. Sounds fantastic. Well, we actually do have quite a bit to talk about today. I figured it was going to be slowish, but it really isn't because we've had more Team 5 communication, which always goes well. So we're going to get into some of that. And then we're also going to get into some competitive Hearthstone news. We got Crazy Game Story, we got emails, we got all the stuff going on. So yeah, it should be a really, really fun show. But at the top of the show, let's just talk about what's going on. Are you doing anything fun, interesting, exciting in the world of Hearthstone?
Well, you see, I tried to be fun and interesting.
Oh no! Our Reddit's gonna be mad again.
So I've been doing this thing because we have been heroic progression rating in World of Warcraft. So I've been streaming that on Tuesday nights, and it's pretty intense. So I've been using Hearthstone as like my chill out, cool down, have fun after raid thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not playing any meta decks. I've been like messing around. Like I was playing like Test Rogue and I was playing like a Elemental Mage and like
there's versions of that deck on HS Replay that are hovering around 50%-ish win rate. So
They
actually don't use Test though. They're more of like a tempo rogue with academic espionage, just like a backup plan. But
yeah, exactly. And so I kind of like I was messing around with some stuff, and then if I would queue into someone who was playing something fun, it was a good matchup. Like it felt like we were both making decisions and playing around with cool cards. But I just queued into so many like meta decks that were just wiping the floor and not letting me have any fun. I lost like 9 games in a row. Totally tanked my rank, and I was just like, okay guys, that was a nice cooldown. I'm gonna go. And I've played a little bit more in the last week to try to get my rank back up again, but I'm still like rank 12. Like I basically like just crawled my way back up from the fun I had. And I'm just like, oh man, it was such a slog. And a lot of times that we're going to talk about this because there was a really awesome Vicious Syndicate article written this week, but we're going to talk about this later on in the show in the strategy section. But like I was playing as like a tempo burn mage and I kept queuing into Odd Warrior and I was just like, oh my God, like why? I can't win this unless he draws super, super poorly.
Yeah.
And like it just, even when you're playing good decks, a lot of Hearthstone just feels bad to me right now.
And a lot of matchups feel like unwinnable. Yeah. I know
and then I go to try to have fun and nobody else is having fun with me. So then it just feels bad because I don't even get the chance to get to like my super fun combo or my super stupid legendary minion I tried to make work,
Yeah, if you try to do like super crazy stuff, that's definitely, but I have found a lot of fun in decks like Death Rattle Hunter because Rexar. When Rexar happens, like all of a sudden the fun begins and you can start doing crazy stuff with zombies and things like that. And I always find that stuff still a lot of fun. But I echo the sentiment where Hearthstone is feeling like bashing your head against a wall to I guess it's just because the polarization makes it so that whenever you have a bad matchup, all of a sudden it's like you get that sinking feeling and then it's like the fun gets sapped just in that one game. And then even when you have the fun game after, it's like that one game like soured the whole session or something,
experience.
Right?
Yeah.
And that I think is the problem. I still am having a great time with a lot of decks, but I do understand like that hopeless feeling, you just never want to have that, right?
Well,
you don't want to ever have that feeling where there's like, damn it, there's nothing I can do right now, Yeah,
and it's to the point where that feeling is so bad that it's like when I queue into a warrior, I don't even want to see what they're playing. I don't even want to. None will survive.
Well, you know what they're playing,
like
yeah.
I just want to concede. And
if there were like a viable rush warrior, maybe you would stick around. But there's only one kind of warrior, right? And it's Odd Warrior.
Yeah, and right from turn 1 what that warrior is going to be because Gen and Baku show up right away, right?
Yeah.
So it's like from turn 1 there isn't even, and this maybe is just a Gen and Baku thing and something that didn't happen before. Before you had like 3 or 4 turns possibly where you could try to figure out what deck they were. And so there was that like few turns of hope right at the beginning, but there just is no hope anymore because of Gen and Baku. It's like, okay, I don't want to queue into Odd Warrior. I don't want to play Even Lock. And it's like right away, bam in your face. Yep, this is the matchup that you know you're never going to win, or is a very, very, very unfavored for you type thing. Like they have to draw poorly, they have to misplay, and that way you'll win. And that just doesn't feel good. So then you get to the point where you're just like, I literally haven't even played a card yet, and I just want to concede.
All right, well, let me pose this to you, though, Jocelyn. If you're playing Burn Tempo Mage, you are also playing a polarizing deck.
Oh, totally. Definitely.
So it's not all their fault for playing Odd Warrior. It's also partially, you got, like, because that's why I'm playing decks more like that control mid-range Zoo with Gul'dan and stuff, or I'm playing Death Rattle Hunter, because those decks feel to me like I can beat the field, right? And there are still bad matchups, but the bad matchups to me still have a winnable thing. Like if I'm playing the Death Rattle Hunter against Odd Warrior, I understand like, okay, everything's got to go. I need Rexar. That's the card that wins me the game. And if it's anything else, I know that there's a way for me to win through, you know, eggs and all that kind of other stuff that I do. So like at least I know there's a game plan, right? So I think, you know, in a way, like, you know, I understand that you don't want the meta to tell you you don't get to play the deck you want to play. But it's, I guess the question then is, do I just care about playing the deck I want to play? Or do I care about ranking up? Because then if I care about ranking up, then it's a game of beat the meta, not play the deck that I find fun, right? And to me, like, I can find fun in both of those things.
Yeah, the reason that I was playing the Tempo Mage is actually because like I'm down to 75-ish wins for my Golden Mage. So I'm like, okay, I want to play Mage. I want to, you know, knock this off my to-do list.
Sure.
And so I tried playing Elemental Mage. I tried playing Big Spell Mage, and everything was just burning me out way too quick because obviously where I am in the ladder, people are trying to go through as quickly as possible. So I was having a really hard time actually getting my wins with anything that wasn't this super fast polarizing fast mage deck. So
you know, the Big Spell Mage is supposed to have a good matchup against Zoo, though. It's just one of those things where you do have to still tech it for that matchup, right? Because if you're teching it to also beat super heavy control.
Well, it's not even necessarily Zoo that I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of Odd Pally. I'm seeing a lot of even
Rogue and Odd Pally.
And Odd Rogue. Oh my God, so much Odd Rogue. It's like every other game is Odd Rogue. So I'm
and they always have a 1-drop, and then they always have Hench Clan Thug.
always.
You have to be able to beat those cards. And what's funny though is like at this point now, like Doomsayer doesn't necessarily even, like Turn 2 Doomsayer doesn't even necessarily beat those cards.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of nutty. I do think though that that there is a fun thing to be had in Hearthstone, and I'm trying it out. And that is, I created a brand new account, and I'm going 100% free to play, and I'm rank 50. Well, now I'm rank 45.
Some of that.
Yeah.
I watched you go from, I think, you finished at 46. So I watched till the end of your stream last night.
No, I finished at 45. I got all the way there. Yeah, I got the 3 free packs.
Okay, yeah. Because, I think I watched you go through 2 or 3 ranks anyway. And it was so funny because it kind of brought up this whole idea of, like, it's super cool that you're doing this, like, experiment, but you have so much Hearthstone knowledge that it's like, is this even, like...
It's not, because I immediately crafted, like, Giggling Inventor because I knew this is just going to be a
powerful, good card.
This card will wipe the floor with everybody. Yeah. And then I was playing Druid because I went and did so a couple of like hints and tips for anybody who's doing this right now. If you're out there doing rank 50, which either means you're a brand new player who then searched Hearthstone podcast right away, or you're somebody who's doing what I'm doing and going back and creating a new account. So go and just do the prelude thing for Knights of the Frozen Throne, because it gives you 1 free Death Knight, and then that 1 free Death Knight, if you get something like Gul'dan, Rexar, I got Malfurion, that will basically say, okay, this is the class you want to play. Yeah. And then build just like a Zoo version of whatever that class is. You can do that with anything. You can do that with Priest. I'm doing it with Druid. I got like Fireflies into, you know, I've got Serenite Chain Gang, Giggling, Fungal Mancers. I'm basically just playing minions onto the board that have the strongest possible stats that you can make at any given moment, and then just punching people in the face, right? That's my strategy essentially, right? And it's working a lot. I will say though, the cool thing that I felt, and I hope that people who go back and do this feel, is that only a few packs, because I'm doing 100% free to play. I'm not going to buy anything, right? I'm
not
even
even the welcome bundle.
Yeah. So but a few packs really did make my deck suddenly feel so much more powerful, right? It felt like once I just added in a couple of cards, I was just torching people who were still playing super basic decks because maybe they just hadn't bought any packs yet or whatever the reason might be.
So you're using gold to buy your packs. Which packs did you choose?
Okay, this is the other tip. Keep buying, like, so they give you a bunch of classic packs, right? Classic packs are kind of what you get for free throughout the entire experience. Every 5 ranks, you're going to get 3 of those. But spend your first couple of 100 gold, purchases on classic packs until you get the first legendary, because you're guaranteed a legendary within the first 10 packs of each expansion, right? So once you hit that legendary, stop buying classic packs, move on to probably Knights of the Frozen Throne, because the first legendary you get there might be Lich King, might be a Death Knight, and I think if you can get one of those things, that's going to be the most powerful addition to any deck. And then once you get your first legendary there, move on to the next expansion and start buying packs from that. So as soon as you hit a legendary, stop buying packs from that set, because now it's 40 packs until your next guaranteed legendary, whereas you could do it in 10. So like you just keep getting legendaries, and if they're not good, disenchant 400 dust. Like I got Murabi, disenchant 400 dust. That meant I could make an epic. I could make, like I could make Ultimate Infestation with just my Murabi if I needed to. And so it's like if you do that, you're just kind of maximizing the amount of power you can be adding to your decks as quickly as possible.
10 classic, 10 Knights of the Frozen Throne, then Ungoro.
I probably would go to Ungoro after that. But Witchwood also has some pretty powerful cards. I just think Ungoro has cards that are a little bit more powerful in a vacuum. Whereas Witchwood and Boomsday, like they feel like they kind of build upon existing archetypes. And so first, like, get to those archetypes, I guess. I don't know. I haven't scienced all that out perfectly, but
I
start
feel
with
like I would
Frozen
probably
Throne.
leave like Boomsday to last.
Probably. I mean, there's some really good cards in Boomsday, but yeah. Because you can craft the super amazing Boomsday cards like Giggling, right? So.
Well, yeah.
Like, because Giggling is just, it's rare? I think it's a rare.
Yeah, it's a rare, so it doesn't take much.
100 dust. Boom, you got it. And also, the first time you disenchant something, they give you 95 dust. So you instantly can disenchant the first basic you get 95 dust. That's 100. You can make a Giggling like right away. So yeah, do that too. Open one pack, make a Giggling, put it in your deck immediately. Because a lot of people, I mean, there's tons of people playing Hunter, tons of people, and I'm only at 45, so I don't, like, things are going to change. I'll keep people posted as we go along, but a lot of Hunter, a lot of Mage, very little anything else. Because I think a lot of people see, 2 damage to your face with this button press, like, that sounds good. And then a lot of people obviously play Mage because that's what you start with. And then you instantly just have Mage, right? You might not have even unlocked the other classes at that point.
Yeah.
Also, do all those little hidden quests. So beat all the AI on whatchamacallit. Beat all the AI in advance. What is it? Veteran, advanced? I don't know. Whatever.
Expert, isn't it?
Expert. There you go. Yeah. Beat all the AI in an expert, because that gives you another, I think, 100 gold. That's another free pack. And then do your 1 free arena run, because you get 1 free, and that'll give you a pack and potentially some more gold and dust. So lots of ways you can kind of get your collection off the ground, up and running. Loxadar in chat says PSA Ungoro KFT leave in April 19th. I don't care. I'm doing this for 1 month, and then I'm never touching this account again. So all I care about is maximum power right now. So yeah, if you do care about, keeping the standard thing going, then sure, get your Boomsday and your Witchwoods first. But for me, I'm literally going to 25 and I'm never touching this again. So
yeah, we were specifically talking about how you can get the most power as quickly as possible by which order do you buy your first 10 packs from each expansion.
And by the way, April 19th, that is a long way off still.
It is still, yeah.
We're talking 6 months here, so.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
Okay, we've got some Hearthstone esports competitive news. HCT Fall Championships are coming up this weekend, so if you are super excited like I am about it, make sure you are glued to your Twitch, the Play Hearthstone account. It's going to be interesting because I think we're going to see said polarized meta in super action. There's been a lot of shifting since the last big HCT tournament as far as what class, well, not like a big shift, but just like a tightening, I guess you could say. There's no more Paladin.
Yeah, Paladin is totally gone. Just one before we dive into deck lists and everything else, just wanted to do a PSA for everybody. Choose Your Champion is back.
Oh, yeah.
You have to get it done before Wednesday at midnight Pacific time. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice and you haven't chosen your champion yet, do it right now. Now.
Who'd you choose?
Who do you think I chose?
Just saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, I always do this though. I choose the guy who's on a hot streak and then the hot streak ends right there. Yeah. But I mean, this is just mega ultra hot streak. So I think it's the safe choice. So I have on the screen here, you can see these are the deck class breakdown. We got Rogue, Warlock, and Druid highly represented. I'm guessing a lot of that is Quest Rogue or Odd Rogue, right?
It is more Odd Rogues than Quest Rogues. Okay. Quest Rogue has fallen off a little bit.
I think a lot of people are going to ban Rogue regardless. And so Quest Rogue isn't even going to get through. So if you center your lineup around that, it might not be an effective strategy. So let's see. We've got one warrior, no paladins.
Yep.
Wow. Two priests. Holy crap.
Yeah, Hatul's lineup is actually the most, I guess, diverse. He's got Odd Warrior, Control Priest, and he brought what I think Hearthpone was calling Big Druid, but it's kind of a hybrid between Taunt and Big Druid. So It's got the kind of base of Taunt, but then it has like Sarah thrown in there, and they're calling it big, but it's not actually big. It's not like Quest Druid.
It's running Hadronox, though, is what you're saying. So
it is running Hadronox, yeah, and it's running it's running like Oakheart and the dragon kind of package with the Dragon Hatcher and all that kind of stuff. So it's I think the core of it is really Taunt Druid with a few like big bomb legendary minions thrown in there. So it's the most like out of the box lineup, I would say, because like everybody else is in the like Druid, Warlock, Rogue realm.
It seems like a lot of people are just kind of going with, these are the strongest decks. Doesn't matter what your ban strategy is, I still will be able to get through. Right, which is kind of what I was talking about. Like if you play Malagos Druid on the ladder, you can kind of beat whatever, right? If you play Odd Rogue on the ladder, you can kind of beat whatever. Even when you go up against that Odd Warrior, which is like supposedly a really, really difficult matchup, the amount of damage you can build up so early just negates their hero power sometimes, you know? So, that looks to be like even Warlock is another deck that's kind of like that. It's like I can just kind of beat whatever you bring, if I play it optimally. So that's kind of interesting. Most popular legendaries. Oh, look at that, Keleseth, huh? Yes. I cannot wait for this card to rotate out, and I hope that we never see a card like this again. Because I just hate. It's just too early to decide a game, right?
It's early and super swingy. Like if you get it on 2, then you're just ahead for the rest of the game. And if you don't pull it on 2, then it's hard to even find a chance to play it sometimes. So,
and its power level diminishes so quickly. So like it's, turn 6 Keleseth is nowhere near as good as like Coin Keleseth. Coin Keleseth is insane. And then the Lich King, obviously, Malfurion, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of this is looking fairly standard. Giggle's the most popular rare. Mind Control Tech, Nourish, Serenite, So here's all the deck lists. We have the link in the show notes if you guys want to check them out. It's always fun to take some of these decks for a little swing on the ladder. They're generally not optimized for ladder though, so if you do bring them out there on the ladder, be aware that you might run into some trouble just because they're teching for a tournament meta, which is quite different. I mean, if you look here, we've got one Odd Warrior. That's not the ladder meta.
Yeah, exactly. These guys are prepped for a tournament meta for sure.
Sure, yeah. But should be a lot of fun. I always just like the HCT because the production quality and everything, the player quality. You see actual top level Hearthstone, which is really inspiring in a lot of ways, because if I'm struggling and I'm having trouble on the ladder, like I'll go and I'll watch these guys, will be like, oh wow, like that's not at all how I would play this situation. And I see there is still a huge leap in expertise between me and this, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room for improvement. So it's like, it gives me hope that if I can just play better, my results will be better, right?
Yeah, I do. I find myself watching way more Hearthstone than I'm playing these days. And it's not that I don't necessarily enjoy playing so much. It's just that watching these guys is so many levels beyond me that, like you say, it's quite inspiring and it's quite fun to watch. So but yeah, there's quite a few guys. Like, I mean, I know we were talking about Choose Your Champion and we both went on the Just Saying train, but I think there's a lot of guys in here that would be totally, well, I guess all 16 are totally valid choices, but Language Hacker's been having a really, really good run. So is Tyler, for that matter. So Blood Trail's also awesome. So there's quite a lot of really solid choices in this Choose Your Champion. So Just Saying is on a hot streak, but if you're looking for someone who isn't on a hot streak, then give Language Hacker a look, I think, actually.
Okay. And there's also potential.
Like, I'm going between the two of them. I'm not really sure which one to pick. Yeah.
We could also see, like, and one of the things that's cool about these two is you can see a breakout performance from somebody, which, you know, is always fun. And this is the big one, right? This is, well, not the big one, but this is the get to BlizzCon big one, right?
This is the $50,000 to the winner. This is the get to the, not BlizzCon, but the World Championships.
Sure, okay. Well, we'll just say BlizzCon forever.
You're going to get people super excited that they're going to get a World Championship in a few weeks, and that's just not the case anymore, unfortunately. But breakout performance-wise, I think Hatul is probably the big story there. He was a little bit hard to watch when it came to the interview, but he did come up through, oh, dude, I don't know if you saw it or not. But
no, cringe, yeah?
He's he has a very high opinion of himself and a very low opinion of his competitors. We'll put it that way.
You know, in a way, I don't mind that from my professionals in the athlete realm as well as the esports realm, because it's, I think for some people that's how they get an edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it doesn't. I know that it's like it turns people off, but I also see why people do it, because it is one of the ways where you can kind of pump yourself up to do the very possible best you can, right? Because you feel like you need to be the best. Because you say you're the best, you know.
It's a way to make a name for yourself too.
Oh,
because
that's true.
Like that interview, out of the 16 that I saw, that's
who's the one you remember?
Stuck in my head because he was kind of a jerk, and I was like, oh well, never want to watch anything with him again. But he's the name I remember, and that also makes me remember his story, which is the fact that he came up through like the Fireside Gathering, like the whole Challenger online tournament series. He didn't come up through all of these HCT tour stops. So when it comes to breakout performance, I would say he's probably the one to watch.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm excited for it. We also have some awkward news in the esports world, which is that Taiwan has been DQ'd from the Hearthstone Global Games, which, by the way, if you do want to talk about things that are happening at BlizzCon, that will be happening at BlizzCon.
Yes. That is the big Hearthstone esports event at BlizzCon, is the HGT finals. So
I don't know too much about this, other than I know that essentially what they were accused of, and I guess confirmed to have been doing, is it's a 3-person team, right? Is it 3-person?
4-person.
4-person team. One person is actually piloting the deck, and that swaps around who's doing that. But the rest of your team is allowed to talk to you, confer with you, and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, they were watching the stream, and I'm sure the stream had a delay to it. But whether it has a delay to it or not, there is still information that you can still use information, because a card will be in their hand for several turns, which means you can see that it's there and then know exactly which card they have and which card they've held on to for a little while. And knowing exactly that is a huge deal. So.
Exactly. So the stream is on a delay. I'm not sure if it's a 5 or 10 minute delay, but there is a delay on the stream. But like you said, I feel like the 5 to 10 minute delay was probably okay back in like earlier Hearthstone.
Yeah.
But right now, I feel like with teams taking, especially in a competition like HGG or a Trinity Series, anything where you have multiple voices,
and they use the entire rope every single turn.
Entire rope. Yeah. And even if you're looking at like the HCT tour stops, even when it's just one single player, the way the game is now, there's so many different, like, not even necessarily random outcomes, but just there's so much stuff going on and so much generation of cards with Discover and Beast, like Rexar's Beast and all that kind of stuff. There's so many outcomes to consider and decisions to make that even single players are taking full entire rope turns. So a 5-minute delay in vanilla Hearthstone was
it's
fine
like 3
because
turns.
the turns were like this. But now you might, with a 5-minute delay, only be 2 turns behind. So you have so much information available to you on these short delay streams that, they might need to look at either extending the delay to reflect the meta
for these broadcasts. Why even do an hour delay, right? Because no one's interacting with chat. The reason why I don't like putting delays on my stream is because it makes chat interaction really awkward, right? Someone says something, I'm like, 5 minutes ago you said this, now let me respond to it. That's not happening in an HGG broadcast.
Exactly.
So just do a huge delay where this can't even happen. Anyway, whether
it's a 15-minute delay, but at the same time, a 15-minute delay when you're talking sometimes a half an hour to 45-minute game, there's a lot of information that you can get that you couldn't potentially get in
obviously it's less than if it was live, but it's still enough to be an advantage, and that just shouldn't be allowed. So also, this is just really poor sportsmanship, man. Like,
there's that too.
It's just, that's shameful. I don't know exactly how they got busted, but they got busted and they're out, and that means Singapore moves on.
As far as I know, it was actually reported, and they didn't say, they didn't give any names or anything, obviously, but as far as I know, it was actually reported by one of the Chinese Taipei players who said, like, this happened, and so they investigated, and they were able to, I guess they have, like, the views of all the players or something. Like, I don't know what they did. Anyways, they did an investigation, and they were like, yeah, we can clearly see.
Well, good on that guy, by the way, for coming forward and saying, I'm not cool with this.
Who that was.
I don't want to throw anybody on the bus or, whatever, but somebody was a hero there then, because that's awesome to come forward. It probably ate at him inside, right? Like that they were doing that.
So the interesting thing is they have said that because of the match that it took place in was the kind of elimination match between Chinese Taipei and Singapore. Singapore is actually the one that's going to advance instead. They're going to be the ones going to the global games at BlizzCon. But they haven't said outside of that if there's going to be any sort of punishment, I guess, for the 4 players on the Chinese Taipei team, which does actually include our world champion, Tom 60229. So,
interesting.
How all of this is going to play out, we're not really sure. But as far as we know, they are disqualified from HGG, but we don't know if it's going to have any more
if they're going to remove HCT points or anything.
Yeah, because this is not an HCT event, but it is a obviously sanctioned by Blizzard event.
Sure. No, even if they're not connected directly, they're still connected for sure. So I think they should dock them HCT points if they're on that team, right?
Yeah, I would say and so this is kind of the because punishment generally is just disqualification.
Yeah, or just banned from being able to participate at all,
Right. Yeah. So that's where my mind kind of goes is I would say it would be okay, if you're cheating in an official Blizzard event, you should be disqualified from HCT.
Blizzard events.
Or exactly. Sure. Yeah. Blizzard events. Yeah. So I would say, maybe not permanently forever, but we've seen
suspension.
We've seen some pretty harsh suspensions in the past. So maybe this season of HCT competition, having your points for season 3 of 2018 not count, that would be a huge blow, I think, and enough to say, okay, I'm not going to do this again. But the other thing is too, that would mean they would probably have to penalize the person who came forward as well, because they're not releasing that person's identity.
Well, so as to protect them, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So then it's then do you punish the person for coming forward, meaning that no one's going to come forward anymore because they're well, I don't want to lose my whole HCT season. But if they don't get punished, then it's oh, Tom's points still count. So clearly he's the one that came forward.
Yeah. Although I don't think there's like a mafia in Hearthstone where the other 3 guys are going to come after you and like murder you or anything. But
no, but
yeah, but no, I see what you're saying. It makes it awkward.
Like,
yeah.
If you're a fan of Chinese Taipei and you were super looking forward to them going to BlizzCon, and I mean there is a lot of money tied up in HGG as well, you know, like that there's a witch hunt potential there for sure. I mean, Reddit is not kind.
But I think Reddit will side with the person who came forward.
I would hope so.
Like, remember Hosty?
Yes. Yeah.
Ghosty.
Ghosty.
Yeah. I mean, he got vilified, you know?
Yeah, true.
There's been other guys who have had these kind of situations have happened. And yeah, Reddit does not side with the cheater. Reddit
That's true.
is all about, you know, we've had Chalky like do a whole bunch of investigating into Magic Amy, and people did not jump on Chalky, right? So it's sticky situation though. We don't like to see this. I'm glad to see that it at least got uncovered. I'm glad to see that somebody did come forward. That's really nice. I will keep you guys posted on how this all shakes down if we find out any more information. Speaking of down, somebody stepped down. And that is, of course, Mike Morhaime stepped down as the president of Blizzard Entertainment. The guy who said that you aren't going to like WoW Classic has taken his place. That's J. Allen Brack. I don't know if you remember that interview. It was a panel at BlizzCon where someone asked about the Classic servers or whatever that they were taking down, and he was saying, you don't want that, and then he was the one who actually had to announce it when they're making it. Anyway, he is now the new president. I will say this: I own Blizzard stock. It went down after this. People lost a little confidence in Activision Blizzard because I think Mike Morhaime is kind of a rock solid guy in a lot of people's minds, and So yeah, like stock was up. I was like, yeah, owning Blizzard stock is sweet, and I was like, oh man, I'm back to square one. So anyway, Mike Morhaime stepped down. People are, I guess, tentatively not happy, and then we'll see how things work out. But I don't think he steps down and suddenly like things crumble. We've seen this before. People step down when they're just kind of done, you know?
Yeah, he is still involved. He's still on the like board or whatever they call it. So yeah, he's still like in an advisory type of a role. He's not like gone. He's just
people get older and they don't want to be at work every friggin' day, especially when they're rich.
Yes, exactly.
Like, let me enjoy my riches, you know?
Yeah. And it is too bad though, because I know like I very much liked Mike Morhaime, and I think that the direction that he had taken the company was a good one. And he always struck me as a very good and honest guy, and he seemed to stick up for the little guy. There's a lot of his BlizzCon speeches that are speeches that you wouldn't necessarily expect, touching on social and political and toxic gaming type issues that you would think like people wouldn't touch that at a like celebratory event, or, you know, even as president of such a large company, usually people steer away from that stuff. And he wasn't afraid to address those issues head on. So I'm sad to see him go. I totally agree with you. When you're getting older and you're rich, just, you know, same as Metzen, take a step back, enjoy it, you know. But
spend time with family.
He was one of the founders of Blizzard as well. So
yeah, he's been there for a long time.
Yeah,
super nice guy too. I've talked to him at events. I've talked to him at like DreamHack. I've talked to him at BlizzCon and stuff before. He'd always just kind of be standing around, and no one would really be talking to him. You'd be like, Mike Morhaime's like right there, just chilling. Yeah, no one's talking to him, and that's weird. Because he's just kind of a quiet, unassuming guy, but super smart, super interesting. And like you said, I remember him taking on the Gamergate stuff in like the opening ceremony of BlizzCon, and that was pretty cool of him to do. Speaking of BlizzCon, we also have a BlizzCon schedule release. So let me throw that up on the screen, and we can kind of go through and see if there's anything that we can glean from this information. Hearthstone's main stage event is the absolute middle one. So they're starting with Diablo, which generally to me, so this is what I'm kind of like pulling from this stuff. They want to open with they're going to give a bunch of, news in the opening ceremony, right? Like the most exciting thing. That's when they do all the big
news and the teases and the whatever,
But Diablo goes very first after which to me kind of means that there's going to be a big Diablo announcement.
There have been a lot of hints towards a large Diablo announcement. And I mean, I feel like Diablo fans who were hoping for / expecting like Diablo 4 to be announced last year just got so burned that they're so afraid to say that like it's something big.
They got a necromancer, you know?
Yeah. But
it's
I think
fine.
all signs are pointing to something big for Diablo. Whether that's Diablo 4 or not, I don't know.
We'll see what it is. I gotta be honest, Diablo 3 is still super good and fun, and it's hard for me to think that somehow 4 is gonna give me some amazing experience that I'm not having with 3. I don't, it's like games haven't advanced far enough in that time where suddenly a dungeon crawler can just like be that much better. I don't know. So that's
maybe
that's
it's
me.
Gonna be Diablo Battle Royale.
There you go. Oh my god. Jeez. Diablo PvP always fell flat on its face. But look, if you made it, where you're kind of like first person-y with a Diablo character and doing Diablo, I don't know. Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
Overwatch What's Next comes after that, and then Hearthstone right in the middle. All of them are getting the same amount of time, by the way. They're all getting 45 minutes. So it's not like
which is
one's
standard.
getting
That's what they always get.
Yeah. It's not like one's getting like an hour and so that you can make a, big stink out of that. World of Warcraft also goes after that, and then generally I would expect there's not a lot of World of Warcraft because we just had an expansion, and yes, there is stuff to say, but
we just had the 8.1 reveal, and that's up on the PTR. Like that's our Tides of Vengeance is our next big piece of content in World of Warcraft, and we already know that. So
sure. Like I feel like it's probably just
taking a back seat. They're probably gonna talk like 8.2.
A couple of features that might be coming out, a couple of adjustments and things like that. But then you got Heroes going last. To me, first and last are kind of the most important parts, so I'm expecting maybe there's a cool Heroes announcement, which would be fun. I've kind of been out of that game, so if there's something cool that brought me back in, I would be happy about that. As far as like other stuff, let's see. We got Blizzard music, blah, 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 blah. Nothing really Hearthstone-y until the Streamer Showdown, which is just, a fun little event. So let's move on to Saturday and see what we got. By the way, HTG is going on all day pretty much.
The whole time, yeah.
And then on Saturday, we got one thing with Hearthstone, and that is Artist at Work Hearthstone. All right. Feels like we're not going to get a lot.
There should be at some point, I can't remember if it's on Friday or Saturday, but there is another Hearthstone panel. It's the past and future of the single player content in Hearthstone. So
there's Hearthstone Puzzling Dungeons and Bewitching. That's the only other thing that's
it.
Color coded in the Hearthstone color.
That's the single player content panel.
Okay. So to me, it doesn't feel like we're gonna get a huge Hearthstone announcement.
No, we're getting the next expansion, and that's it.
Yeah. That's what this all feels like. Doesn't necessarily mean there's gonna be nothing outside of expansion. It just means probably not some gigantic thing outside of expansion. But I think we're expecting that right now. There was a theory posted in our Reddit, by the way, that somebody thinks that they didn't say for sure that there would be nerfs and buffs, but that after HCT, that would be the time to do it, and so they think that it might actually still happen, and they're just not saying it outright. I really hope that's the case. So you think
nerfs and buffs might be coming at the What's Next panel?
Well, it would happen. Like I think it would happen before BlizzCon. It's not going to be something they announce at BlizzCon. Like it would happen after this weekend. Like they would announce whatever changes. If it's going to happen, that's when it happens, right?
Well, and that's something we talked about in the past because I feel like we had nerfs and buffs like right before another HCT event, and it's like, do you do it before the HCT event? Do you do it after the HCT event? When do you talk about it? Because then every time somebody in HCT loses because of something that's then going to get nerfed, it's like,
sure.
Man,
I think it's nicer to not even talk about it until afterwards, right? I think that is
coming Tuesday.
Yeah, that does make sense. They announced previous ones before, and then people were like excited about it, but then still playing with old decks. And the weird things too, like you're on the ladder and you're like, oh well, there's that you won't be able to do that in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I kind of do prefer like here's what we're changing. It's happening today, right? Like that. I think is the best way to go about it. So. We'll see if that's the strategy that they follow. And there you go. BlizzCon schedule. It's out. All right. Before we get into our strategy section, we do have to thank a sponsor for today. That is awaytravel.com. Awaytravel.com, if you listened to the show in the past, is our favorite thing ever when traveling. And if you're traveling to BlizzCon, Now's a good time to go ahead and use a promo code. awaytravel.com/TAC is what you use. So that will get you $20 off your order, and you can get some of the best luggage going today. So the checkout code is TAC. Promo is $20 off the order. This is carry-on. They got bigger than carry-ons. They're lifetime guaranteed, which is super sweet. They're super durable. They use, I always get it wrong, smooshing technology. What is it?
Yes, they're patented smooshing technology.
Patented smooshing technology.
Way more than you ever should be able to, including all the swag that you buy at BlizzCon, because that's literally happened to me before when I'm like, do I take my new BlizzCon clothes or my old clothes that I brought with me?
You just take them all and smoosh them.
You can take them all with Away.
So it also has a interior pressure system, TSA approved combination lock, free shipping within the lower 48 states, a 100-day return policy if you don't like it, but you know what? You're not going to not like it. You're going to love this stuff. It's I'm so happy to have this. I was using the crappiest luggage for so long, and I was just like, it's luggage, whatever. I don't care. I just put my stuff in it and I go. I don't worry about, I was never a guy who thought good luggage was going to be some sort of amazing thing for me. No, using this luggage, I'm like, so happy when I'm on a trip, because you get the battery pack, which I didn't even bring up. The battery pack in your luggage, which means you can play Hearthstone on the go and not have to worry about if somebody has rudely taken all the seats with chargers next to them. You got your own charger with you, ready to rock. And yeah, it's just, I remember the first trip I took, I met up with my mom, and I'm like, Mom, check out my luggage. And she was like so excited to look at all the features. Did
she think you were a super grown up?
Yeah, she's like, wow, you're using real luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely check out awaytravel.com/TAC, promo code TAC. You get $20 off your order. $20 off your order is actually, this is not super expensive luggage to begin with. So $20 off is a pretty big percentage as well. So definitely check that out. All right, let's move on into we're not doing crazy game stories, are we? We are later. Strategy. Oh, yeah. Okay, It's time for strategy.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
So today we're not going to talk about a deck. We're going to talk about an article that concerns the current meta. And that article was posted on vicioussyndicate.com. And it's essentially about meta polarity. And I think this is the time to be talking about this, obviously, because it's been a subject on the Angry Chicken for a while now, and it's been something that a lot of people are talking about. They're just not having fun in Hearthstone. Why are they not having fun in Hearthstone? A lot of people are saying stale meta, but I do think that polarity of matchups is probably stale. We've had stale before, and we didn't have this many people seem to be jumping ship, right? Or at least talking about jumping ship, or talking about not wanting to play anymore. It feels like we're kind of reaching, this is the height of Hearthstone complaining that I've ever seen, right? This is the most Hearthstone complaining that I think I've ever seen. And we've been covering the game for 5 years.
Yeah, and I feel like with this specific meta, it's really, really interesting because it feels worse than some of the more stale metas that we've had in the past that have had less choice. This may be a quote unquote stale meta, which I don't even necessarily believe, because you have choice, sometimes 2 and 3 different decks that you can play to a high level in each different class. I think there's, Warrior is probably the exception, but there seems to be a lot of variety and a lot of choice.
Yes.
But the game
tons of viable decks
feels bad.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if I can call it a stale meta, because if I don't like the deck I'm playing, it wasn't the same as back in the old Undertaker Hunter days, where it's you were playing Undertaker Hunter or you were losing. So you had one deck choice. It's now you have 15 viable deck choices, which to me is not really a, stale or bad meta. There's a lot of player agency when it comes to what I actually get to play. So it should feel good.
And why doesn't it? Well, according to Vicious Syndicate, one of the biggest problems going right now is meta polarity. And so the Vicious Syndicate is, I think, a fantastic resource for Hearthstone. I like to use HS Replay and Vicious Syndicate and TempoStorm.com. I kind of like to just, conglomerize all of my stuff into one giant, pool of all the information, because they all jump at the meta and viable decks and everything from a different perspective. So basically they're using what they're calling the meta polarity metric. And the way this works is if you have a 60-40 matchup, right, that is a 20% polarity. So that it's the difference between the win rate of one deck and the win rate of the other deck. And so if it's 50-50, that's a 0, right? 55-45, that's 10. So you're basically, as you know, as the gap gets bigger in win rate between the two decks, you know, the polarity increases. And then what they're also doing is, so just to kind of make sure that we understand how they're using this data, they're also only using legend rank and this is an important thing. You ask
for all of the time whenever you're talking about like Blizzard and their stats and stuff. You're like, just tell me what ranks you're looking at, and please tell me that you're only looking at legend.
So this is an important distinction, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But they're only using legend rank, and then they're also essentially they're doing I think that didn't they say? They tried another measure where what they were doing was then square rooting the matchup differentials before averaging them out. Then they realized that didn't change the data very much, so they ended up just presenting it to us in the first method, right?
One is straightforward. The other is more statistically rigid. Like it's more.
Sure, yeah, but it's also a little bit
when you're
harder,
comparing stats, but it's harder to understand, and it
Yeah.
didn't change the outcome, so they went with the easier to understand.
The other thing too that I want to say too is they're also using they're also weighting these averages based on the popularity of these matchups too, right? So if you see one matchup more often, that increases the overall meta polarity, right? So each matchup will have its polarity. Then they take all of those matchups and then weighted based on the popularity. So the most popular one affects the meta polarity more than, you know, a matchup that doesn't happen very often. So anyway, then they give us this graph here. And this is since they've been collecting data. So here we've got Whispers of the Old Gods as the beginning of their graph, right? And you can see here the meta polarity at that time, according to their data, was 10.04%, right? And then
so we're talking matches that are like 55-45.
So that means average like matchup polarity that you would get on the ladder would be 55-45, the average, right? And obviously like a more popular one, you know, might be different, but just on average that's what you're going to get. Then you can see that, you know, as expansions come out, they have the pre-nerf version and the post-nerf version. Generally what happens is the polarity kind of increases as more cards come out. And that to me makes sense. As there's more playable cards, there's more ways to simply counter other decks. Also, decks get a little bit more powerful in the thing that they do, right? Because they have more cards to choose from. That
they might have another tool.
Well, yeah, like, and then they get like overlap, so cards like overlap doing the thing that the deck is trying to do, so the deck does the thing it wants to do more often. So, you know, it just kind of gets there more often, right? So as more cards come out, it generally goes up. You can see here at Mean Streets of Gadgets and pre-nerf, we were at 12.23, and then when they nerfed things, it dropped that polarity back down to 10% about. Now we get, this is Ungoro. Pre-nerf, we jump a huge amount up to 15%. So this was a pretty big, and you know what's funny about this to me is Ungoro, people talk about Ungoro meta being the funnest meta ever. Well, it was not that much different in polarization to where we're at now. I think this might indicate something that's kind of interesting, is that we were used to unpolarized meta, so this just felt so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like all of a sudden we just felt like the game changed a lot. So obviously it's now more fun to us, right?
Well, and like you said, that it wasn't that big of a change from where we are now, but we're talking like from Mean Streets post-nerf to Ungoro pre-nerf, we're talking almost a 5% jump. And then from Ungoro pre-nerf up until now with Boomsday, we're looking at another, like, well, I guess it's just over 4% jump. So
it's under like, 4%, but it's about that same jump, but we're talking 3 expansions, right? Instead of 1 expansion making this much of a difference. Now, this is also a rotation. So obviously that's going to matter quite a bit, right?
The rotations do. Clearly the rotations make a difference too, because you can see there's a big jump going into Ungoro, and there's a big jump going into Witchwood. And
Mhm.
those I think are very much rotationally based.
Yeah.
But I think like the way that the reason I like this article is because it's actually talking about like the difference between the win rates and the way that I had been thinking about things, because I know we'd seen Blizzard throw out like the 70-30 as like too much,
Mhm.
too polarizing. And even then I was like, oh, but like 70 is only 20% higher than 50. Like that seems like pretty big. But I was like, even like 60-40 seems really close to 50-50. Like these don't seem like huge jumps to me.
Yeah, but
But then
20% difference is a lot.
when I started thinking about like not just the like distance
from 50,
but
yeah.
but the like change between the two, and going from like having a 10% difference even to just a 15% difference, and just pushing that extra 5% apart, like 55-45 versus 57.5 to 42.5 doesn't seem like my math on the fly there, by the way, doesn't necessarily seem like a huge difference. But when you just think of them as like moving further and further and further and further apart, it's just like, oh man, that actually kind of does make a big difference.
It does, yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing too, so people are talking about Ungoro anecdotally may have been more polarized, but it's shifting all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's rotation's going to do that. But like I was saying, like it just felt like the game I think changed so much, right? We actually got back down to nearly Whispers levels with KFT after the nerfs, 10.44, and then now we're just kind of shifting up into an area we've never really been before, and I think that's so. Witchwood, we got almost where we are now at 18.87%. A lot of people were very unhappy at the beginning of Witchwood because there were, some decks that were just completely defining the meta, right?
Yeah.
And then we see post nerf, it actually helped a little bit in this respect. I'm saying helped. I'm just talking about this one thing. Obviously, we can talk about whether polarization is 100% negative or 100% positive. It's obviously not that. There's a gray area. But we're at the highest we've ever been. And this is kind of the point of the article, is that now we're at a nearly 20% average polarization, right? So that means we're averaging close to that 60-40 matchup.
Yeah.
And I think, though, I want to look at this down here because this is, I think, the interesting thing, right? So this is deck polarity of each deck, right? And its frequency and everything. So the most polarizing deck during Whispers was Yogg Hunter. I remember that deck. That was a fun deck. Polarizing, yeah, for sure.
And I think that's why a lot of people didn't like the Yogg decks, is because Yogg Hunter was so popular. And well, it was so polarizing because it's like it felt at some points like your win condition is just a YOLO Yogg. And that's why people hated Yogg, and they hated that it could flip a match that wasn't necessarily gonna go in the Hunter's favor. And like that's why we ended up with the Yogg nerf.
But it was also, I mean, that deck also just felt like, sometimes they just kill themselves, so it was fine. I don't like this deck didn't feel like a huge stifling problem to me. This Worgen Warrior, I think they mean, is that Patron, but the new version of Patron where they were able to charge the Worgen with the Wind Fury. I'm pretty sure that's what that was, right? Well, this is so long ago now. It's hard for me to remember.
Yeah, I don't remember Worgen Warrior.
Yeah, and by the way, polarization doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a super good deck. It just means that its win rates are that different between all of these matchups, right? So then now we have what is this? This is the Ungoro. So here you see all of a sudden now we've got 5 decks that are up over the 20% threshold, right? So
and also some of the most polarizing decks in here, you can see it's Quest Rogue is over the 20% ratio, and it's at 11% popularity versus
yeah. So this is the other thing I was gonna point out is like here, no decks over 20%. Most popular decks are down here, and they're the least polarizing of the decks that we're showing. Right now we get here, and we've got 5 decks over 20%. 2 of the most popular decks being the ones that are in the top 6, whatever. Now we go down here to Witchwood, and suddenly we've got Quest Rogue at 35%, which is crazy. But again, even Paladin down here, one of the least polarizing of the matchups. But at this point now, the least polarizing is close to what was once the most polarizing, right? As far as actual polarization. And then let's get to where we are today. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decks over 20%. Least polarizing deck is at 12.5 as far as like these things. And then you see the popularity is so spread out among everything. There's so much variation that to me, this is what it feels like. This is why it feels like the rock, paper, scissors meta, right? Because you're constantly, you're every time you queue to something, you're like, I'm favored, I'm unfavored. You never seem to be like, oh, this is just an even matchup. Let's see if I can outmaneuver them, right? You always feel like, oh man, I'm favored, I'm unfavored, I'm favored, I'm unfavored. You enter into almost every single matchup with that kind of feeling, right? Some of the cards and things that they point to, quests, death knights, some mana cheating, and then obviously like the Gen and Baku with the even odd. And I agree. I think these are some of the most powerful cards we've ever seen in Hearthstone, and they definitely create this polarization. Okay, I think we've broken down the article a little bit. Let's talk about some of the responses and the backlash that these responses have received. So you can see Mike Dene in Reddit where somebody linked this article, had a response, and he said, I'm glad you made a few comments explaining, by the way, minus 637.
38 now. 38 now.
Yeah. So people hate this comment.
Yep.
I'm glad you made a few comments explaining that polarized does not mean bad. And I agree with that 100%, I think. But I do think that the article was written with an opinion. And the opinion was that polarization is mostly bad. But he's saying, I'm glad you made a few comments explaining that polarized does not mean bad. Your article reads quite differently, though. You should probably discuss the pros and cons of it so that players don't all jump on the zero polarity bandwagon. And I 100% agree with what he's saying here. If the article did not present really any positives of polarity, really. I mean, they talked about how it's not always 100% bad, but they didn't talk about why it could be good, right?
Well, and I think the point is we've never had a zero polarity meta, even
never will.
In Old Gods. Yeah, even in Old Gods, we had 10%. So I think the conversation is, or should be, that polarity is always going to exist in Hearthstone. But how fun is it to play in a 10% meta versus a 20% meta?
Yeah, I think that's the point of the article, is that there's a level of it that is healthy.
That is healthy and
a
fun,
level of it that's unhealthy, and they said a good version of this article, and this is, I think, what people are really jumping on. A good version of this article talks about why it is good and why it is bad objectively. I'm sure if every deck was a mid-range minion-focused deck, people would be complaining about how boring that meta is. And again, I agree with the reason he's getting downvoted so harshly is because he speaks very bluntly. And I know this about Mike Dene. I've watched things with him in the past. It's just how he is. I understand it because I'm that way too sometimes. I get a lot of backlash from listeners of this show because I'm just like opinionated and just say my opinion outright. And if they don't agree, it sounds like I'm crapping on them or something, right? But I do want to point out something. He's just saying that the best version, like, he shouldn't have said like a good version. He should have said like the best version of this article.
Because the article is
very good.
well written. It's well written to a point that I can digest it, and I'm not a huge stats person. It's like I can read it, I can make sense of it. It hits home with how I've been feeling about the game, and it seems to be resonating with quite a lot of players. So to call the article or
it sounds like he's calling it bad.
It sounds like he's calling it bad. That's not what he said. He said a good version of this, which then means, well, is this then a bad version?
This is a bad version. That's what it. It is. That is what he's saying essentially, and he should have worded this better. He should have said the best version. Sorry, right? Yeah. Anyway, it's the thing is, the article, to me though, the onus is not necessarily on this article to be objective about polarization, because this is essentially an op-ed.
It's an opinion piece.
Yeah, this is an op-ed about their dislike of polarization. The person who actually wrote this article, and then here's a bunch of data to back up my argument, right? That's fine. It's just, it doesn't present the other side because it's not taking the other side. So, I think I appreciate Dene responding. It's just, oh man, that did not come off well. And you can see here, minus 638 now on the upvote downvote scale. But we didn't stop there with responses from Blizzard employees. We also got Ixar weighed in, and I believe it's because somebody, Joe Marshall over here, decided to tweet the article at Ixar, Say, I was wondering if you saw Vicious Syndicate's report on metagame polarization. It's a very interesting read. Then we have Ixar follow up with like 7 tweets here. So I'm going to try to, shorten this just a little bit. But he says, I did see the article. Metagame polarization, as they called it, is a fairly interesting topic. I'm not sure our data aligns. We were looking at something like this fairly recently, and there didn't seem to be much to suggest that polarity has increased so dramatically over time. Now, this next tweet, though, this is where I'm gonna stop after this one, and we're gonna break down this next tweet here. It's possible that snapshotting Legend specifically, or the exact moment in time they chose the snapshot, had an impact on the differences in data. In any case, the interesting part to me is that metagame polarization is necessary. It's just about finding the right place. Now, the last part of that sentence is great, because I do agree, metagame polarization, it's not necessary, it's just unavoidable.
It's a part of the game.
It's unavoidable.
We're never going to hit perfect 50-50.
I don't think you need to.
We even should.
I don't even think you need to try for it. You make cards that counter things, but you don't necessarily make you don't design deck archetypes just to counter other deck archetypes. You let the players figure out, but it's just, I think unavoidable is the right word here.
Yeah.
But he says it's possible that snapshotting Legend specifically is what led to the differences in data. Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's not just possible. That's 100% why. If that's not what you're doing, Blizzard, then you're missing the big picture here, because you're only looking at the big picture. You need to be looking at every spot along the spectrum of the player base and where they are on the ranked ladder to really understand how this works. Because if you're looking at a ranked 25 player who's playing Quest Rogue against a ranked 25 player who's playing, I think one of the most polarizing matchups against Quest Rogue is Odd Rogue, right? Odd Rogue's supposed to stomp Quest Rogue, right? But let's say you have a really bad Odd Rogue player and a really bad Quest Rogue player, and you have them play 100 times. Their polarization spectrum is going to be way different from 2 top-tier players playing that same matchup 100 times.
Yeah.
And so that's not going to represent the deck polarization. Like, you're suddenly you're going to lose
player polarization than anything else.
Yeah, you're suddenly going to lose like how the decks actually match up, and you're going to end up with this just mishmash of unusable data. So you really need to. I don't think they need to just throw out rank 25. I just think they need to take the snapshots at each spot, then look at overall, see how different it is up there, see how different it is here, that kind of thing. Because obviously at the top ranks, that's where this is really you're going to see it play out the way that it technically should, right?
Right. And that's where the polarization is going to be felt the most. That's where it's going to be the most obvious. And that's also where most people are going to be exposed. That's where, like, we're going to see it in tournament play. We're going to see it in the top Legend streamers. Like, that's the Hearthstone that's out there for the masses. So it's going to impact people, obviously, in different ways. It's going to impact the players in different ways, but it's also going to impact people's perceptions of Hearthstone. So that even if I'm a level 10 player and I jump onto the ladder, I'm going to go into those games, and this is getting a little bit more into the feel of Hearthstone as opposed to how it actually plays out in the game itself. But if I go into that matchup thinking, oh man, I'm Quest Rogue, oh, that guy's an Odd Rogue, I'm just going to lose this game.
Sure.
I feel bad from right at the very beginning of the game. And that's not a good thing, because they're always talking about how they want Hearthstone to be a good play experience and a fun play experience and fun. Well, if what you're presenting to people is this crazy polarized experience, then when people queue into those matches on ladder, they're not going to have fun from turn 1.
Sure. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. And I think, I also do want to present the other side of this, which is that, like I said, don't throw out all of the other data. I'm just saying, like, use all of the available tools you have to you. So yeah, the other problem with just using Legend is that, the sample size is smaller, right? But that's why you need to look at the other things to say, like, oh, okay, so there's a huge amount of variance here between this and this. Why is that? It's like, you don't want to just break it down as, okay, this is where it's absolute and this is where it's whatever and this is where like, you need to kind of understand why. And yes, Legend players, there might not be enough matchups to really make a determination, but they're making less mistakes. The decks are playing out in the way that they're technically supposed to. You're absolutely right that then the presentation of this is coming, it's trickled down, it's coming from the top down. To me, what I don't get is why they're so anti-changing something. Like, because the rank 25 player is not going to have less fun because you made the top tier decks closer in polarization. You know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah.
The rank 25 guy is not going to suddenly not have fun because you made a change. Like, that to me seems like a silly way to approach this problem.
Well, and that's kind of why I like Vicious Syndicate's approach here. I like looking at just legend players, and I like throwing out the rest of the ladder because that's going to be your most optimized play of the deck.
Yeah.
So if you have the most optimized play of the deck, then that's, I think, the best way to make a decision about where your polarity between your decks actually lies and if that's a problem or not.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It seems to me like this was the correct way to go about figuring out numbers for that laid the groundwork for this article. I don't think there's anything bad with their methodology. And they also stated it right up front. It's not like they said, this is the be all end all of how all metas were. This is literally, they're like, we are looking at a snapshot in time. We are looking at a small amount of data, but it should be the most representative of how these decks play out in a perfect environment, because legend players is as close as we have to that perfect environment.
Now, he also, Dean brings up
out of the equation.
Sure. And Dean brings up to a little bit lower on here that at a high level, decision should matter in terms of gameplay as well as what deck you choose. And I agree with that. I think, you know, in a tournament setting, you want to be able to attempt to counter. I just think that what you don't want to do is you don't want to counter absolutely. You want to counter where you just give yourself a better chance, right, with the deck you pick. I absolutely want that to play into all decisions. I don't, and he says, like, if you look at the extreme flip side, does that mean all decks have a 50% win rate? And I think, again, it's like, I don't want to think this, but I feel like they're missing the point, and the point is not that we want zero polarization. The point is that we want less. We don't want it to be at the level that it's currently at. Like, let's just knock it down a notch, and there's ways to do that. But I feel like what Team 5 tends to do is, like, argue against us, absolutely, and I don't like it. I don't like feeling like...
Both of Donay's comments and Ixar's comments are those total flipped, extreme other way. Like, Donay's talking about all mid-range decks with all mid-range minions. And it's like, well, no, we didn't ask for that.
That's not what we're asking for.
Ixar is talking about, like, going for a 50% no variation, no polarity meta. And it's like, no, we're not asking for that either. Like, you can see in the graph, some of the most popular metas have been Old Gods and have been Angoro. And those were in the 10 to 15 range. And like you said, Angoro was probably
a huge jump,
heralded as the best meta of all time. People liked that 55 to 57-ish area. Like, when it feels like you still have a chance, when your deck is somewhere between 40 and 50% win rate against another deck, you feel like, 45% of the time I'm going to win this. That's a much better feeling than, well, 20% of the time I win this. If he happens to draw totally dead, I might be able to kill him. Like, it feels better as a player to have that chance at winning. So again, we don't want 50-50. We just want to have a chance. We just want to narrow that gap a little bit. But both Ixar and Donay seem to very much say, you guys don't want this extreme edge case. We're like, no, we don't want that extreme edge case.
It feels like your parents caught you smoking a cigarette and then made you smoke the whole pack, and you're like...
It's like, I didn't want a whole pack of cigarettes in 10 minutes. I wanted one cigarette, and then I'll have another one later.
So I also do want to say this. Like, I do agree that Ixar says that, because the article does say that these really powerful cards can be dangerous. And then they said something about how people hate things like Death Knights, Jade decks, even odd. That was probably, the article did make a mistake, I think, in saying that, because that is strong. People don't hate playing those cards. People just hate it when because cards are played against them. There's like an inverse thing of like fun for one side to fun to the other side. you know, if I played Jaina on 9 and I'm the guy who didn't play Jaina on 9, I'm the other guy, I'm like, oh, like I can't win this game now, you know, and or like they Gul'dan me or something after playing, you know, 2 Void Daddies, and I'm just thinking, that's the only card I couldn't beat. Like I could win this game. This game was actually going to be a winnable game for me. I got through all this health and taunts, and then you Gul'dan me and all that health came back, and now I actually can't win. It's like those feelings are, yeah, the guy who played Gul'dan had super great time doing it. I inversely had a terrible time. And that is true to card. So I don't want them to get rid of that. I understand that that's a thing. This happens in Magic too. You know, in Magic, I play Disinformation Campaign and I make the guy discard his whole hand, and I'm having a blast doing it, and he's not having fun at all, right? So this is a card game thing. It's not a problem necessarily, but it's just what you do want to do is control the level of it, right? And control the timing when things happen, and if there is any counterplay to it. And Hearthstone's always going to have to be a little bit careful, I think, because it is a game where on your opponent's turn you do nothing. So you're always going to have to be a little bit careful that the tug of war of my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, you can't ever have the guy like yank the rope out of your hands, right? And I think that's kind of what's happening in some situations. Is it feels like, yeah, like you started the tug of war with your tippy toes like on the water thing, and the other guy's like all the way back and has, you know, has like
he
2
just
guys.
Has to give one tug and you fall over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that you kind of want to avoid that. You want to feel like there's still a chance, right? And so hopefully that's the message that they receive. You know, I will say this though, man, downvoting the crap out of Mike Danae's answer and being super toxic to him was also not helpful. I'd like to see the Hearthstone community and Team 5 start to talk to each other in more constructive ways, and that happens on both ends. So hopefully people who are listening to this understand that we're not trying to be super negative. We're just trying to be realistic about explaining how we feel about things, utilizing the data that we have. Because I was Mr. Positivity about the meta compared to you and Garrett a couple shows ago, and I still am mostly that. I just also think that the points on the other side are completely 100% valid. There's arguments to be made both ways, but I think that we can move in a direction that makes more people happy more of the time, and I don't become less happy because I love polarization. Like that's like, you know, it's, to me, it's like we're just not at that middle ground that we really want to be at, where most of the people are happy most of the time. Hopefully we can get there. All right, that's enough of that. Let's move on. We've got one more sponsor to thank today. And we actually, today is a good day to have this as a sponsor because we got a tweet from somebody who apparently was a brand new customer of MeUndies. So we've all gotten our MeUndies sent to us in the mail. And what did the tweet say, Jocelyn? Somebody just said, like, I didn't believe they were this comfortable.
They really are that soft.
Yeah, I couldn't believe they were actually this comfortable, and they actually are. Yeah, because we, you know, we have been touting MeUndies for a while. And
I love these ad reads so much. MeUndies is like my favorite sponsor.
I tout MeUndies all the time. So they recently sent us some other stuff. I got MeUndies socks and a shirt. The shirt is so comfortable. So that they're not just for undies anymore.
Not just undies anymore. Yeah, they're doing lounge pants too.
Yeah. They're doing like pajamas and stuff. It's great. So definitely check out MeUndies. Yeah, again, not just for undies. You don't just have to, your junk doesn't have to be the only comfortable thing on your body, guys. You can make it all comfortable. We do want to talk about the fall offerings. MeUndies is going to be celebrating the fall season with fun Halloween prints. You can check out their latest Jack-o'-lanterns print. What's that?
So good. I said I love the new Jack-o'-lantern one.
Yeah?
It's so cute. They
got undies, socks, and bralettes in the new spooky Jack-o'-lanterns print, because it is Spooktober.
My other favorite thing about this is, so if you guys don't know, Garrett writes all of our ad reads, and he put in brackets pronounced bralette. I'm just like, oh, there's so many girl things that you guys just don't know.
Well, I mean, is that not how that's how it's pronounced, right?
That is how it's pronounced. I just love.
Did he just think that we wouldn't know?
He had to put a little note for himself to be like, "This is how I say this weird girl thing."
Sure. Yeah, like we wouldn't, like I just wouldn't know how to say that.
Yeah.
Like, not only do I know how to say it, I know how to take them off. Like I'm an expert. So yeah, we've said it time and time again. We love these undies. They're softest underwear we've ever had, and like the fun prints, like we said, are super awesome. And yeah, you could be MeUndies from head to toe with the new socks and bralettes. The offer for our listeners is super fun, and for any first-time purchasers, you get 15% off and free shipping. So definitely look into that. The MeUndies.com/TAC is the way you do that. They have a 100% satisfaction guarantee. And I will also say, this isn't in the copy read, but I'll also say the MeUndies subscription package is great. If you're like me, you have a problem where your underwear over time is not so fantastic anymore, and so you're constantly like at Walmart, like, oh, I need a package of underwear. Don't want to do that anymore. Underwear just in the mail, ready to go. MeUndies. What? It's true. You know what it is, though? I actually found out what I was doing wrong for so long is I was putting my boxers and stuff in the dryer. You got to hang those things. They'll last forever if you hang them on the line. So anyway, hang your MeUndies on the line. They'll last a long time. All right, let's move on to some crazy game stories.
Is the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it.
You send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Joss, why don't you read this one from Mark?
So Mark writes in and says, I'm playing Shutterwalk Shaman versus Control Warlock. The game's going well. I play my combo pieces and Shutterwalk with my board empty. Walk does his thing, but as chance has it, I don't get one back in hand. Uh-oh, at least I have a couple on board, so we'll see what happens. Opponent's turn, Twisting Nether. Well, crap. Okay, new game plan. I find my Hagatha. There's about 8 cards left in my deck. Throw out some minions and see what I can pull together. I keep my minion plays to a minimum while I wait to draw Hagatha and eventually get her with maybe 1 or 2 cards left in the deck. I play Hagatha, toss out a couple of minions the next turn, and find myself with the Stormbringer. This transforms your minions into a random legendary minion. Excellent. This is getting interesting again. The next turn, I get 4 minions on board before playing the Stormbringer. What do I get? Chameleos. Ugh. Millhouse Manastorm. Meh. Libidinous Floop. Blah. And Black Howl Gunspire.
Oh, damn. I forgot about that card.
Right? What do I happen to still be holding? Zola the Gorgon and Volcano. My opponent smells victory and takes his time. He's Blood Reaver Gul'dan by now and at full health. He hits me in the face and trades with the lesser legendaries, but ignores my Gunspire. I Zola the Gunspire, so now I have 2. On my last turn, I clear the board as best I can before unleashing the Volcano on my 2 Gunspires. Time to get the popcorn and enjoy the show.
Wow.
He actually sent in a screenshot. So I was like, no way.
Double Gunspire.
Gunspire. But yeah, apparently double
Volcano.
Volcano, real good. Kills
That's pretty sweet. Didn't you try to make Gunspire work for a while when that card came out?
I did. I had
pet
such
projects.
high hopes. I thought it was going to be so fun, and it was fun. But
it was fun. It just wasn't good.
It wasn't good. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's always when you play Shutterwalk and you get that super unlucky thing where it does your Grumble before either Serenite Chain Gang or Zola before. Zola, like it does Grumble, then Zola, and you're like, what? Like, I played 4 Serenite Chain games this game. Anyway, that is super frustrating. All right, we got to thank some of our patrons. Patreon.com/TAC is where you can support this show directly. So, $1 an episode, 50, whatever you want to donate per episode. It helps a lot keep this show going, keep us up and running. But we're going to thank our longest running patrons, some of our longest running patrons today. Daily Tech News Show. Wow, one of my favorites. DTNS, Scott J, Dave W, Peter H, and Julian S, or Julian S. I don't know how you say it. Thank you guys so very much for supporting the show for so long. That really means a lot to us. That is awesome. All right, now, before we end today's show, we're going to do probably just 1 or 2 of these emails, because we've been doing this for a while now. Well, let's do it.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
Once again, you can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. First email today comes to us from Holt, who says, hello, fellow cockfighters. All right. I'm working on my 8th golden hero portrait. My last 2 are Druid and Rogue. Well, Rogue is halfway there. I just broke 100 on the Druid, so I want to focus there. My problem is Druid is so boring. I have a decent Taunt Druid and a decent Mechathune Druid. My Token and Malagos Druid need a little work, but mostly I need something fun. What is your most fun Druid deck? Well, I see that you didn't put Togwaggle in there, and that is a deck that plays out super weird because you Togwaggle, then you Azalina, and you take their whole hand. And so you just get to play with the rest of their deck, which is kind of fun. So if that's something that might appeal to you, it's, you know, it's a really weird win condition, but it's actually pretty top tier. So probably recommend that. Maybe you can try Spiteful.
Yeah, this is like do you want something super viable or do you want to just have some fun? Like, how much do you care about your rank? Because for me, I really like Big Druid. I like the quest.
Oh, sure.
Everything, like, just, it's super fun to just be throwing down bomb after bomb after bomb, but sometimes it's kind of hard to get there. So it's not the most viable of all the Druid decks, but you kind of listed all the viable Druid decks. So yeah, my vote would be like big Quest Druid.
The Quest Druid with the where you're not, because there is Quest Druid that's just basically like a Malagos Druid.
Right. Yeah, no, none of that Malagos nonsense.
Well, the other one you can do is you can do the Charge Devilsaur Quest Druid, Charge Devilsaur Cube, and Deathwing, which we actually played, I think, one time in a triple-headed chicken thing. And yeah, it's not super good, but when it wins spectacularly, and that can be a lot of fun. And sometimes you just win without doing the combo. You just win because you get 0-cost giant minions at the end. So yeah, give that a try. I think the Togwaggle, though, is one that you're going to end up with a ton of like different games, right? Like I remember, like I was playing that Death Rattle Quest Priest for a while, and it was really fun because you'd Archbishop their deck, Benedictus, right?
Yeah.
And so you got all these games where you're playing all their cards and doing all these weird, crazy things, and the games would take forever, but they're always just so different and interesting. So I think if the thing is that you're just not having fun, I like doing like where the deck makes every game play out super different. Yeah. All right, let's go do it. We out. And so before we go, it's time to again thank our patrons. Patreon.com/TAC. It's where you can support the show directly. You can also give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps people find the show and keep us near the top of the iTunes game podcast ratings. Thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H, Sean C, and LVE. You guys are the friggin' best. Tack coffee mugs and glasses are over at etched.amove.tv. You can also find t-shirts for sale at shirts.amove.tv. If you want to find the back catalog of Angry Chicken episodes, you can find those at amove.tv and youtube.com/amovetv. Follow the show on Twitter. We are at Tag Podcast. By the way, people do often ask, like, where do I find the show notes? It's amove.tv. Click on the little tack link, go to the thing, and then each show has a description and actual link to the show notes where you can find
right at the bottom of our
and you can actually find all the links that we talk about in the show and everything like that. So definitely check that out. You can always catch us live if you're listening to this in your car or you're watching it on YouTube. If you want to catch the show live, it is at 4 p.m. Eastern, normally on twitch.tv/amovetv. I know today we're on my channel, but and also you can find us on alphageekmedia.com. Big thanks to Brian Griffith Music for our intro song, and let's tell the folks where we can find us individually. Joss, go ahead. What's going on with you these days?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays, and wanted to remind everybody that it is Extra Lifetime. So if you're not familiar, this is we do streams for charity. It's for the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. This is my 7th year now, I think, doing this. We've raised, or I personally raised almost $10,000 for the Children's Miracle Network. And it's super, super fun. We're doing our first stream on October 27th. And if you'd like to support me or anyone on the team, you can go to bit.ly/TGI Extra Life 2018.
Awesome. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Willie Dills. You can check out my stream, twitch.tv/Willie Dills. I will be doing the new player kind of challenge, trying to make my way from rank 50 to rank 25 and seeing how that goes as a free-to-play player. I'll be at one with 5 years of Hearthstone experience, but just not with
totally
a lot of cards.
Cheating. You have to find a way to like dumb down your brain while you're playing. Get the real new player experience.
I can inebriate myself to.
There you go.
Because I really play bad when I'm drunk. So yeah, come check out the stream, twitch.tv/WillieDills. And if you want to follow Garrett, Garrett is at GarrettArt on Twitter, nomoonart.com if you want stream designs, things like that. You can also check out his other shows, Into the Nexus and The Angry Nerd. So thank you again to everybody for tuning in today. And again, all of our patrons and everybody in the live chat. And until next time, job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!